Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to be working on a Penn Mag 10. This is the smaller version of the 210, and this is the one upgrade to the Penn number 9. The Penn number 9 is a similar frame and shares some of the parts with the Penn 10, but the difference between the two is in the bearings, which are upgraded for the Penn 10, and there is an override on later models of the Penn 10 that enables you to flip the switch and back pedal the reel, which you cannot do on a Penn 9. And well, the Penn 10 uses a bigger drag washer as well. So there are a lot of differences, even though the size and format of this reel looks similar. It's funny, I haven't done one in a while, so that's why I'm going to do this video. But interestingly enough, in 2 separate shipments, I've received about 10 or 12 of these Penn 10 reels. So that's unusual in and of itself to get one, no less a dozen of them from 2 separate folks. So I should be able to do these in my sleep by the time we're done. And my goal is to, well, teach you how to do them so that you can service these reels themselves. And if you just want to learn a little bit more about a Penn reel, and how this comes together and what the key points of it are and why these are still very nice reels even by today's standards, well, stick around and you'll be able to find out. If you like these types of videos, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. That'll let you know when I'm posting. And if you like this video, please hit that like button as well. Well, this one has a handle that's a little tight. So instead of trying to rock it off or bang it up or whatever, here's a quick little tip for you. Just take the star adjuster and walk it up the reel in reverse, and that'll just pop your handle off. The reel looks like it's been pretty clean, but it looks like it's a surface clean, right? There's some dirt and debris on the collar here and on the metal parts. So I'm going to just use a kitchen scrubby, and I'm going to use a rod and reel cleaner as I take the pieces and parts off, just to get the old dust and debris off of that. And if it needs a little bit more, I'll move over to a metal polish and a piece of superfine steel wool, and we'll complete the cleaning that way. But right now, these clean up pretty nice. So these Penn 10s are beasts, and with the advent of braid, wow, they can handle the same line capacity as you would have needed on the 210 as opposed to the 10. All right, we've done a little bit of that. We'll kind of clean this as we take the pieces and parts off, but I want to get over now to removing the side plate. There's 2 things I like to do with this one. One of them is to remove this piece here, the screw that's holding the line guide in. And that will need to be lubricated over time. You can pull that line guide out, and generally, I'm probably on the wrong side of this right now. Generally, you can walk it out and over. I'm getting a little stuck right now, not a problem. All right, we're going to remove the screws that hold the side plate in, and I know I mention this quite frequently, but as you take the screws out, notice that there's different size screws and note where they go. In this case, we have 2 very long screws on the bottom holding this into the reel seat. So we have long and we have longer screws. And if you're not familiar with these reels, I would recommend that you go to the internet and get a schematic. You can find a schematic for this at mysticparts.com, among other sites. And also take pictures along the way as you're at critical stages removing pieces and parts. That will help you with reference points. It'll tell you where the parts go, how they are oriented, and well, where they were before you started removing them, so that if you have any struggles on the way back in, well, it'll be a guide for you to use. Okay, these 2 have not come out yet. We can get them out. They're longer screws, so just note that. And then when I take my pieces and parts off, I put them into a parts tray. That's my system for organizing the parts that I remove and how I go about reinstalling them. I recommend that you have a system to deal with that when you are working on your reel. Okay, these are the two screws that belonged in the plate, and as I mentioned, they're a little bit longer, so I'm going to go put them onto one side. Now we can certainly take that out now, and you can see there was an attempt at cleaning, which was nice, but we still have some tarnish and debris where whatever they were using to clean didn't reach in there. That's okay. I recommend that as you take your reels fishing, to stop at the end of the trip and hose those reels down with fresh water. Better yet, take them off the rod, put them into a bucket of fresh water, and that'll help to dissolve any of the dirt and debris that may have gathered during the trip. As an aside, don't put dish detergent or anything in that water if you're putting it in a bucket. Dish detergent is a degreaser. It will dissolve the greases in your reel, and well, it'll leave it squeaking. All right, talking about squeaking, we're almost squeaky clean on that. Very nice. I'm going to put that in my parts tray. We'll take a moment here to service the line guide and pawl. I did notice it was turning a little rough as it was making the roundabout, headed back in the other direction. So to service your pawl, you remove the pawl cover. That's kind of stuck in there at the moment, and that kind of says that we've had some buildup, and that's why it's been a little bit tough here. You can see that there's a buildup of dirt and debris in here. We want to make sure that we clean that off. Sometimes you can just rub it clean. Sometimes you need a little bit more of an assist. There is a groove in the center there. And here's the other thing you want to do with these. You want to clean the dirt off of the shoulders. And there is dirt on the shoulder, and my guess is that's probably why it was sticking as it was coming around, turning in the other direction. Well, I mentioned that there's an earlier version of this. They only made about 2,000 or 3,000 of them before they switched over. That earlier version does not have the spool override so that you can backpedal on that, anti-reverse dog override. So just be aware of that. If you have one, that's the one we're working on. If you don't have one, don't panic. They made reels without these. Here's that mag. It's right here. So it's fixed to the bridge. That mag will interact with this side of the spool to slow it down, and it is not adjustable. Okay. The next step, we'll clean off the trim ring here. Again, a kitchen scrubby and a little bit of that cleaner goes a long way. All right. Sometimes it's a little difficult to get off because, well, you got the mag in there. Let's see if I can't just work a screwdriver. This one came off pretty easily. You do need to remove this trim ring in order to continue the service of your reel. Okay. Guess I jumped in two different directions here. I took the pawl out. Let's just put the pawl back in. Check your grooves on your worm gear here. If you're seeing that your worm gear is dirty, go ahead and flush it out with some penetrating oil, and that'll help as you go to reinstall. All right, this is the way this belongs. We're going to put the drop of oil into the pawl cap. There is a little copper washer or brass washer on the bottom of this cup, in case you're wondering. We'll take this now, and we're going to start by tightening the screw. And then at some point, it usually happens that you're not in the groove with the forks on the pawl, so just keep kind of twisting it, turning it, twisting it, turning it. It's an iterative process. Eventually it will seat into the groove, and well, you'll be on your way. We're getting a little bit closer. Well, while I'm doing this, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, if you want to leave those questions in the comment section, I will try to answer those for you. if you're working on a reel and you're curious about any of the facts, leave that comment in there as well. And this one just seems to be a little stubborn right now. We'll get it. Okay, got it now. And what I do is I prefer to put oil on the worm gear, not grease. The reason I prefer the oil is that it doesn't hold the contaminants like grease does. That goes into my parts tray. We can turn our attention to the back side of this reel. There's a bearing in here, as we mentioned. That's a full-size bearing. Test that, make sure that it's working, which I kind of did already. Take your pad while you have this part of the reel open. Clean up the parts that couldn't be reached before. There's no sense not cleaning the reel while you're doing this. Now we have a Teflon washer over here. It's called an idler gear right here. That doesn't need to be lubricated. It's self-lubricating, but there is a metal gear that it intersects on this side, so I do like to put a drop of oil in there. And I think as I'm looking at this, we're missing a side plate screw here, and we'll go find one of those on Reassembly. All right, on the back side of this, I do put a little bit of grease onto the shaft that's going to go into the bearing. And I can set that aside for now as a completed assembly. That doesn't need to go in the parts tray. The parts tray is, well, those pieces are kind of too big to lose, right? All right, let's take the bridge out then. There's 4 bridge screws. When you're removing these, you're going to notice that there's different screws. The 2 screws up top are partially threaded. The 2 screws below are fully threaded. You need to pay attention to that. You're also going to notice that we have an anti-reverse dog over there, which is why I'm cupping my hand as I pull this through. There's a dog and a spring attached here. You don't want to lose those. Okay, they are on the bridge, but it's easy enough for those things to pop off. There's a stud that it sits on, so just be aware of that. As I mentioned, one of the differences between this reel and the Penn 9 is the size of the drag washer. The Penn 9 uses a smaller drag washer set. It uses the drag washers that are commonly found in the Beachmaster series, while these use the washers that are found in the Long Beach series, which is a bigger reel. Push down on your yoke to remove the jack. You have the spring, 2 springs. I put those right in my parts tray so I don't lose those. You have the yoke, which needs to be cleaned, and the pinion gear. To clean it, I just use that super fine steel wool, and that'll generally get rid of the old grease that's on the yoke, just like that. And then from a pinion gear standpoint, I like to spray that down with some penetrating oil just to loosen up some dirt that may be in there. This jack is in fine condition. Examine the teeth on it. This one is very clean. And if you have an issue with the teeth, just get a pick, a pin, something else. Just pull through the channels to make sure that they're unobstructed. In that case, they're fine. We have a bearing in the back. You can test your bearings by taking a Phillips head screwdriver, running it around. This one's running fine. If you feel that it's tight or it's seized, you need to replace the bearings. Drop of oil there, drop of oil on the eccentric, which is going to raise and lower the jack. Drop of oil on the override eccentric here. Next and last to service then is the bridge. We're going to remove the whole gear with the washers inside, and we should be able to remove the gear sleeve as well. Let's see if we can push this through. There's a pin that holds that gear sleeve. You want to push that through. remove that so that you can get to the dirt and grease underneath that. Same thing, I'm going to use a penetrating oil for that to kind of loosen that up. In this case, I'm going to use a cotton swab. Just mop up detail here. Cotton swabs are great for getting into places where you can't get a bigger cleaning agent like that steel wool pad or the like. Just make sure you get it all, and you can run that cotton swab through the inside of the gear sleeve as well. So make sure that's cleaned, and you can wipe the gear sleeve too. On the gear sleeve, we're going to put just a little bit of fishing wheel grease, help it slide. We can reinstall the gear sleeve, and when you do that, push down on your anti-reverse dog so that it raises the tip there, and then make sure that it's working before you reinstall that pin. When you reinstall the pin, make sure you clear the shoulder so that it doesn't protrude out. This is a 6-drag washer system. This has HT100 drags in it, and looks like these have been in good condition. Maybe they've been replaced over its life. And I'm going to just grab a brass brush here, pull through. You can use a toothbrush, you can use bristle brush, anything. Just make sure that they're all clean, just like we were doing with the pinion gear. And also we have an accumulation of dirt and grease on the back end, so make sure you mop that off before we continue. Same thing, I'm going to use the fishing wheel grease now. I'm going to make sure that it gets a nice fresh coat of grease in here. The grease I'm using is Penn Precision Reel Grease, and it's not just because it's a Penn fishing reel, but more importantly because it is a fishing reel grease. This is the grease that I'm using. In case you're interested, it comes in a small package. You don't have to buy the 1-pound containers, and well, it'll last a long time if you do buy the 1-pound containers. These are HT100 carbon fiber drag washers. They are optional to grease. We have 2 metal washers that are called keyed washers. They have a rectangular center. They go high and low, so after you install the first drag washer, put one of those keyed washers in. The second washer goes in, and now you're looking for the eared washer. That has a circle center hole, and it has 2 studs on the end. Those 2 studs on the end lodge themselves in the slots inside the main gear, just like that. If you don't put them in those slots, you're not going to have a drag system. They won't tighten down. This is the second of the keyed washers, or the last one that goes on top. And then we have a cap washer. All right, normally, if you're working on a reel like this, you typically have to finesse that anti-reverse dog, but in this case, it's on the bridge, so you're not going to need to do much with that. Before you install the bridge, you do need to put the yoke and the pinion gear in place, and the springs. The springs go into the cavity. A little bit of grease, as you saw where it was dried, on the shoulders. The slot for the pinion gear faces out towards you when you're reinstalling. A little bit of grease onto the teeth of that gear. And now we can reinstall. We're going to take our yoke and the pinion gear assembly and center that over the hole in the springs, pressing down. We're going to bring the jack in now. The jack comes over the top, hooks on the eccentric stud, and the back end of that fits over the slot in the stud in the case, just like that. Now we can take the main gear, just insert that in. Make sure you have the clearance. Turn the case over. Look for your 4 screws. Remember what we said, the bridge screws are 2 screws that are fully threaded and 2 are partially threaded. So the partially threaded ones go up top, the fully threaded ones go below. And I'm going to start by putting one up top that's partially threaded I'm going to go reverse. I'm going to go in an X pattern. So I'm going to take the fully threaded one below. And you can tighten these down because these are actually resting on the stud. You don't generally have a problem when they have the studs behind them. When you have the ones that are kind of free-flowing, like the Beachmaster or the Long Beach, they're a little bit more difficult to do. Okay, we're going to put the last one down here. Before I go any further, I want to make sure that I have that anti-reverse working. To test the anti-reverse, just turn it. Yep, get a nice click, flip it over, make sure you got the override where you can backpedal. Come on back down and set it. So we're in good condition with that. Next step then, we're going to put the spacer, which is sleeve spacer, and we'll put that star adjuster on. That's just to hold everything in place. We're not going to put the handle on. I'm going to hold it all in place so that it doesn't skip. Okay, to reinstall now on the frame, find the line guide shield. There's a short side and a long side. The long side goes towards the back. Find the two holes for the pins in your case. And if it falls apart, we'll get it as soon as we put this back on. We need our side plate to go on here. Center your holes for your side plate. Press it in. I think we're going to just leave that off for a moment. A little bit of grease onto the shaft of the spool on this side. I'm going to bring this over, get it started, and now it'll be a little bit easier to put that line guide in. One of the things I like to do to just help me with that is take one of the screws from the side plate and just get it started in that top crossbar. That'll keep this thing from flying around too much. Okay, the long side goes to the back. And the other thing we need to do before we tamp it all down is get this line guide in there as well. A little bit of a balancing act. Some of these reels you can put that line guide in after you assemble the frame. Some of them require the frame to be on first. Okay. When you have that in, then you can tighten down the one screw that you've already started. That'll hold that line guide in now. Remember what I said, there's two different sizes of screws. So I'm going to take the side plate screw that's the long one now, the longest of the two, and I'm going to start that in this side here. Now these reels do share that side plate screw size with the 9s, but the 9 doesn't have this extended screw below. If you're having any trouble, just turn the reel around, take a look underneath. Now we got it. All right, there's two long ones. We might as well put the second long one in here. Oh, wrong one. And we'll finish the other two. I'll set that line guide in place. Let's just do the last two screws here. Finish this one up and see how we did. As I mentioned, I got about a dozen of these in here right now, so it'll be good practice. Decided I would do the first one on camera. And then we'll go from here. All right, last one kind of sneaks in behind that override switch. All good to go there. Noted that I'm missing a screw on the other side. We'll get to that in a moment. When you go to set your line guide assembly, make sure that the line guide is inside the slot on the upper cross arm. We can bring that cap over. We want to put a little bit of oil in that cap. Get it started into your fishing reel. Okay, you want to make sure that you pull in on this line guide so that you seat the worm gear. And once you feel it clicks in, just tighten it down the rest of the way. Give it a spin, make sure that it's working nicely. And now we can just finish this project by putting the handle on. Now if you didn't take that gear sleeve off, this would be a time where you could put some oil in there, just as you're directed to do on the cap here. But since we had that off, cleaned it, and greased it while it was off, there's no need to put any more oil in there. Tighten down your drag before you tighten down the handle screw. Then tighten your handle screw down. And make sure that you get a scallop to align with the set screw hole. Then take your set screw. And I guess the good news is the parts tray is empty. So that generally means that I didn't leave anything behind as I did the service here. That's another reason to use a parts tray. But whatever your parts tray or whatever your parts management system is, just make sure you have one that ensures that you can locate your parts, know where they are, and more importantly, have them at hand when it's time to reinstall. Okay, just a little bit of cleanup on this. I'll go, after this video, I will find the missing screw from one of my parts places, and we'll put that back in to complete the service. All right, let's give it a run then. So we're in gear and it turns nice and free. And oh, look at that. One of the things that I noticed when I was testing this is it was hanging up here, and we showed you the debris that was inside the pawl carrier and the pawl, and now we don't have that skip any longer. Make sure that you go to free spool and that your free spool is working. And again, because this has that unique anti-reverse feature, the anti-reverse is on now. Flip that switch up and make sure that it turns backwards. Why do they have a reel that does this? Well, you can save your drags while fighting a fish if you just want to use brute strength and your hand and arm to just kind of backpedal the reel under a fight and then bring your line back in forward. Kind of the old school knuckle buster type of approach, but it is one that will save the drag washers. Well, that's it. That's how you service a Penn Mag 10. Get it ready to go fishing again. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you stay watching. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, EMTs, and everybody who works to keep us all safe and out of harm's way. And of course, I want to thank you, the viewer, for watching, for making this channel what it is, and for, well, just continuing to gain your education in terms of reel repair and service, and giving other reels a second chance. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.